You're a loser. Go find yourself a cheap apartment and get out of here. The shrill, mocking laughter echoed through the quiet private room. It was on the 5th anniversary of my marriage to my husband, Julian, that my own younger sister hurled such hateful words at me. My name is Claire, 32 years old. I studied hard, became independent at a young age, and now run a law firm specializing in legal and real estate matters. This is the beginning of my dramatic tale of revenge. A story that began on the day my jealous sister and foolish husband tried to take away everything I had worked so hard to build. And what followed was a conclusion no one could have ever predicted. That night, I was in a private room at a luxury restaurant Julian had reserved. Outside the window sparkled a city nightscape like scattered jewels, and on the table was a special course meal to celebrate our anniversary, served with beautiful silverware. However, that perfectly crafted setting turned out to be nothing more than a cruel stage for the hellish farce that was about to unfold. Julian showed up right on time, but for some reason, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood my sister, Savannah, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Savannah? Why are you here?" At my question, Julian averted his eyes awkwardly. Well, Claire, I have something important to tell you today. I thought it would be best if Savannah were here too. My sister stepped forward, cutting off Julian's words, and looked down at me with a triumphant smile. "Hey, sis. Long time no see. Surprised? But don't be too shocked yet. There's an even bigger surprise coming." She was wearing an expensive silk dress that clung to her curves, and her belly was swollen, round and large, unmistakably in the late stages of pregnancy. In that instant, I could feel the scattered puzzle pieces in my mind snapping together to form a horrifying picture. Julian's recent unexplained late nights, his avoidance of conversation with me, and my sister, who shouldn't even have a job, posting brand name goods on social media. Come to think of it, Savannah had always been that way. Even when I got good grades or won competitions, she never said congratulations. She would just pout and act like my success was somehow a curse on her own life. So that's what it was. A dull pain shot through my chest, like a hot iron stake being driven into it. But as a lawyer who had been through countless battles, my rational mind barely held back my emotions from spinning out of control. I asked in a deliberately calm voice. Somewhere in my heart, I felt a flicker of relief that my voice didn't tremble even a little. "Could you explain what exactly is going on?" It was, of course, my sister who broke the silence. While stroking her large, swollen belly, both with affection and clear intent to flaunt it, she dropped a bombshell that was beyond comprehension. "Hey, sis! You still look like you don't quite get what's going on. So I'll be nice and spell it out for you. This baby in my belly? It's the love child between me and Julian." Those words, like a stone dropped into a still pond, stirred not the slightest ripple in my heart. I simply turned my gaze toward my husband. Perhaps out of guilt, he couldn't meet my eyes and instead ran his fingers aimlessly over the breadcrumbs on the table. That pitiful display only seemed to embolden my sister even more. "Don't just sit there. Say something, Julian. Tell her everything. What you're planning to do for me and this baby." Urged on, Julian cleared his throat and finally looked in my direction. But his eyes were staring past me, fixed on some point far off on the wall. "Claire, I'm sorry. I truly am. But now that things are like this, I have to take responsibility as the father. I want to make the best possible choice for the child that's going to be born. The best possible choice." The hollowness of that phrase made me sick to my stomach. Then my sister began to talk proudly about this so-called best possible choice. "So, there's something I wanted to ask you. Once the baby is born, we're gonna need a big house, right? So yeah, the mansion you and Julian are living in now? That'll be for our new family from now on." Excuse me, does she even understand what she's saying? That house is the result of my blood, sweat, and tears, built from the ground up after I became an independent lawyer, sacrificing sleep and working myself to the bone to afford it. Julian didn't contribute a single penny to the down payment. In fact, when his small consulting firm was on the brink of collapse, I even helped him with operating funds. But my sister didn't care about any of that. She continued laying out her plans as if she were talking about her own property. The baby's room should be that sunny corner room on the south side. You know, the one that used to be your study? That gloomy room filled with books doesn't suit a baby at all. I want to plant more flowers in the garden and put in a swing set too. Oh, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Oh, and I can't wait to fill your walk-in closet with my clothes. Her attitude didn't anger me. It was almost laughable, even pitiful. Then she delivered her final blow. Let's be real. It makes way more sense for a family like ours to live there, rather than a childless woman like you who's obsessed with work. You're a loser, so go find yourself a cheap apartment and get out of here. A loser. Even though we were in a private room, there were still other guests on the other side of those thin walls. Her words stomped on my dignity without mercy. It felt as if everything I had worked for, my career, my entire life, was being denied. Most people might have screamed or cried in that moment. I might have even thrown the water on the table in their faces. But I was calm, because I knew these two fools were nothing more than pitiful clowns, already dancing in the palm of my hand. In my mind, anger receded instantly, and my thoughts as a lawyer began spinning at full speed. Along with the existing evidence, this veiled threat right here. Recording is active. Perfect. Now the walls are completely closed in. This is going to be fun. All right, I'll play along with your little farce. Enjoy your sweet dream while it lasts. I smothered my anger completely, lifted my head with a blank expression, and said quietly, I see. All right. Eh? I didn't expect you to agree so easily. I thought you'd make a huge fuss. Claire, you're right. Just as you said. The baby is what matters most. You can have the house. As for the divorce settlement, my lawyer will contact you later. Julian and Savannah began grinning in relief at my words. But those two fools had no idea what was coming. That house they believe they've won is actually the gateway to hell. And turning me into their enemy will go down as the greatest mistake of their lives. I stood up quietly, picked up the check, and paid for both my meal and theirs with my card. That was the last kindness I would ever show them. As I stepped out of the restaurant and the cold night breeze brushed against my cheeks, I finally let out a deep breath. What welled up inside me wasn't tears. It was a cold, feral smile, like that of a hunter closing in on its prey. And so, the curtain silently rose on my grand tale of revenge. A few days after that humiliating night at the restaurant, my sister Savannah acted as if she had already claimed total victory. She was euphoric, as if she had won the lottery. As if she were the new queen of the mansion, she kept sending me infuriating messages every day. Hey, are you making progress with the move? Hurry up and get out. We've got baby stuff to buy and all kinds of things to prepare. You're in the way. Oh, and can I just leave your junk out for next week's bulky trash pickup? Don't bother replying. It's garbage anyway, lol. One day, she even barged into the house unannounced, walked into my room with her shoes still on, and began flipping through interior design magazines. This room is so gloomy. Let's make the wallpaper pink and replace the floor with white wood. Ah, I can't wait to turn it into my baby's room. She looked down at my carefully curated collection of law books, built over many years, with visible disgust, and casually said, Throw out all these books for me, will you? Treating my belongings like junk and acting as though it were already her home, Savannah strutted around as if she owned the place. I simply watched her in silence. This must be what they mean by the calm before the storm. Of course, this foolish sister had no idea. She knew nothing about the real moving preparations I had been quietly making behind the scenes. After all, I had already started suspecting their betrayal 6 months ago. Julian's strange late nights. His dwindling conversations with me. And more than anything, Savannah's sudden lavish spending, despite not having a real job. The small seed of doubt that had taken root in my heart had grown too large to ignore. I'm not the kind of woman who suffers in silence. I immediately contacted Autumn, a former public security officer and a private investigator I trust completely, and asked her to look into my husband and sister. A few weeks later, the investigation report Autumn handed me contained horrors that far exceeded even my worst expectations. On the first page of the thick file was a clear photo of the two of them, arm in arm, entering a suite at a cheap hotel. The next page was a copy of a credit statement showing my husband using my family credit card to shower Savannah with high-end luxury goods. The total amount reached nearly one-third of what I had earned over the past year. I had to fight hard to keep my hands from trembling with rage. But what truly sent a chill down my spine was a single medical record at the end of the file. The investigator had also discovered that Savannah had been secretly visiting a gynecology clinic, but not for prenatal checkups. It was for infertility treatment, and a very serious case at that. The doctor's note in the report stated clearly, "Due to severe endometriosis, natural conception is virtually impossible." In other words, the belly she had been proudly caressing all this time was nothing but a complete lie. A malicious fabrication carefully staged to take everything from me. The moment I learned this truth, all emotions, grief, anger, vanished from my mind, leaving only the cold, logical circuits of a lawyer spinning at full speed. My plan for revenge was now perfectly complete. I immediately put all my legal knowledge to work and began executing flawless defensive measures. Fortunately, my husband had always been completely careless about asset management. When it came to property registration or complex legal documents, he had always dumped everything on me. He used to say proudly, "I'm a pro in business, but legal stuff is yours." I once found those words reassuring. I believed we were equals, respecting each other's expertise as true partners. But now I see it was nothing more than an excuse, a way to avoid the inconvenient responsibilities. Little did he know that such arrogance would eventually tighten the noose around his own neck. I used it against him and began by transferring ownership of the house, our only shared asset, into the name of a holding company called Archer Holdings, where I am the sole shareholder and CEO. This company, which I established years ago, outwardly operates as a common asset protection scheme for high-income individuals. Julian was aware of its existence. A few months ago, I casually placed a thick stack of contract documents in front of my husband. "Julian, these are documents for a new tax saving scheme to protect our assets. They're a little complicated, but I've already reviewed everything. Just sign here. This should result in significant tax benefits in the future." Archer Holdings? Sounds like a pretty complicated name. Well, if you say it's legit, I trust you. So this is going to reduce our taxes? Yes, that's right. If you're going to be a proper businessman, you need to act smart. He signed each section I pointed to, one after another. It was the moment he willingly gave up his only asset and all rights to this house. I had to fight the urge to burst out laughing. The castle was now entirely mine. Legally, it had become an impenetrable fortress that no one could touch. Next, I began discreetly preparing to sell the mansion. I already had the perfect buyer in mind. Brooke, a friend from my student days, who now runs a successful IT company at a young age. She's also the very woman Savannah had always viewed as a rival and target of jealousy. There couldn't have been a more perfect casting choice. The deal with Brooke was handled swiftly and in complete secrecy. Now, every piece on the board was in place, and the time had finally come to execute the plan. I called my husband to my law office and, with a solemn expression, began the conversation. In order to proceed smoothly with the division of assets, I'd like to formally request a DNA test for the baby. Of course, I believe it's your child, Julian. But it's absolutely necessary for the documents we must submit to the court. Hearing this, my husband didn't question my words at all and simply scoffed. "Ha! What are you talking about now? That's a total waste of time." Inwardly smirking, I sent them to a prestigious university hospital I had close ties with. There's no way a forged medical certificate could get past that place. Now, the moment of final judgment had arrived. The ridiculous play performed by those foolish clowns was finally drawing to a close. The moment when their castle of lies would collapse with a thunderous crash was just around the corner. And then came the day of reckoning. Ironically, the sky was a flawless blue with not a single cloud in sight. It felt almost as if the heavens themselves were blessing the unveiling of the truth that was about to begin. I sat on the terrace of my home, quietly savoring a freshly brewed cup of coffee, simply waiting for that moment to arrive. 2 p.m. At a special examination room in the university hospital, the doctor would announce the test results. I attended the scene as a lawyer via online connection from my office. On the screen, I could see Julian, his face tense and nervous. The elderly doctor in a white coat was my former professor from university and one of the nation's leading authorities in the field. He glanced down at the thick file in his hands, then began to speak in a calm yet commanding tone that left no room for doubt. First, Mr. Julian, we compared the DNA sample you submitted with that of the fetus supposedly in Ms. Savannah's womb, but we were unable to obtain a fetal DNA sample to begin with. What? That can't be. What does that mean, doctor? Please stay calm. The reason is simple. Because. The doctor took a short pause, then turned his sharp gaze directly toward Julian. His eyes pierced through everything. There is no baby in Miss Savannah's womb. Ultrasound, blood tests, every piece of data clearly shows that you are not pregnant. And I regret to inform you, but after reviewing her medical records, it is evident that due to severe endometriosis, natural conception will be extremely difficult for her, now and in the future. At that moment, I could clearly see Julian's face drain of all color through the monitor, turning pale as a ghost in a matter of seconds. The doctor, as if to deliver the final blow, placed a sheet of paper on the table. In addition, the pregnancy test kits and ultrasound images she submitted from another clinic the other day. After conducting a detailed examination here at our hospital, we have concluded that all of them are malicious forgeries. This is not something that can be brushed off as a mere marital dispute. In some cases, it may be considered criminal fraud, a very serious offense. Fraud. The weight of that word froze the air in the examination room. And at that very moment, unaware of what was happening, Savannah, who had skipped the hospital visit claiming she wasn't feeling well and prioritized the move instead, stood in front of the mansion, accompanied by a moving truck. She was fully believing that her new life was about to begin. Her expression was triumphant, like that of a victorious general returning home. But just as she proudly reached for the intercom, the heavy oak door opened from the inside, and a woman stepped out. Well, hello there, Savannah. What exactly are you doing in front of someone else's house? Standing there was none other than Brooke, the classmate Savannah had always seen as a rival and secretly admired since their school days. She was now the rightful new owner of the mansion, having officially purchased it from me just days earlier. Brooke had always been the one friend I could trust with all my heart since our student days. Brooke? What are you doing here? This is my house. This is Julian and my love nest. Get out of here, you outsider. Brooke calmly brushed off Savannah's hysterical outburst. She had prepared everything perfectly for this moment at my request. Your house? What are you talking about? I purchased this house lawfully from my dear friend Claire a few days ago. Here, this is the registration notification, basically the deed. You, on the other hand, are trespassing. I should call the police. Savannah turned pale as Brooke held out the legal document. She wasn't getting the house. And the truth about her fake pregnancy was about to be exposed. And in that humiliating moment, she was exposing herself to the one person she least wanted to see it. This is a lie. It has to be a lie. Claire said she was giving me the house. This is some kind of mistake. If I just called Julian. But as she pulled out her phone with trembling hands, she saw Brooke calmly dialing 911 without hesitation and panicked, collapsing weakly to the ground. At the same time, Julian was at the hospital, having just heard the entire truth from the doctor. That the baby was a lie, and that the house he believed to be his only asset was already lost, by his own signature. Crushed by layer upon layer of despair, all he could do was hang his head in defeat. On my monitor, I saw Julian's phone ringing loudly, undoubtedly from Savannah. But after glancing at the screen, he shook his head weakly and declined the call. In that moment, their fragile relationship built on lies collapsed with the emotionless words flashing on a smartphone screen. I quietly ended the online meeting and, certain of my victory, slowly finished my lukewarm coffee. Thus, the foolish and greedy scheme hatched by my husband and sister came to complete ruin. After that, Savannah, who had made a disgrace of herself in front of the house, was arrested on the spot for trespassing, reported by Brooke, the new rightful owner. During questioning, it was fully revealed that her pregnancy had been faked, and at the police station, she reportedly received a cold call from Julian saying, "I'm done with you." It was the fitting end to a mess entirely of her own making. And a few days later, after learning the full truth, Julian appeared at my law office, looking gaunt and defeated. "Claire, please, give me one more chance. I was tricked by Savannah. I'm a victim too." He sobbed, making pathetic excuses, but my heart didn't waver in the slightest. "A victim? No, Julian, you were an accomplice. You only cared about my career and my wealth. And you tried to trade me in for someone younger and easier to control. That's all there is to it. I have no interest in hearing your excuses. Sign this." What I handed him were the divorce papers, along with a massive compensation claim for his fraudulent use of my assets. Faced with the overwhelming evidence I had gathered, he couldn't say a word. With trembling hands, he signed every document. He lost nearly all of his assets and his professional reputation was ruined. I've heard rumors he's now working some insignificant job in a distant town, but that no longer has anything to do with me. My plan had been executed flawlessly, and the traitors received the punishment they deserved. They were utterly defeated before the law and the truth. And then, 3 years passed. I had handed over my company to a trusted successor and now living a peaceful life as the owner of a small art gallery in a seaside town, a dream I had cherished for years. This place, purchased with the funds from the sale of the mansion, had become a symbol of my new life. Through the large window that spanned the wall, I could see the calm, shimmering ocean, and the salty breeze brought with it a gentle sense of peace. I thought I was finally free from the hatred of the past. Then one day, a letter arrived at the gallery. The name on the envelope was Savannah. For a moment, my heart froze, and I nearly tore it up. The humiliation of that day came back to me in vivid detail. But something made me hesitate, and I left the letter in the drawer of my desk for several days, unable to open it. And then, one quiet afternoon, as rain gently tapped against the gallery window, I finally gathered my resolve and, with trembling hands, opened the seal. Inside were several pages filled with words of apology and regret, written in a hand that was far more careful than I remembered, with signs that she had rewritten the letter many times. "Dear Claire, it wasn't until I lost everything and was completely alone that I finally realized how foolish and shallow I had been. I was always jealous of you, of everything you had earned through hard work. Your brilliance was blinding, and I resented it. I couldn't accept it. I wanted to destroy it. But I was wrong. I never even tried to see how much effort and how many tears you shed to get where you are. I'm so sorry." She went on to explain that she was now living in an old apartment, working a part-time job, trying to support herself on her own. She was also attending professional counseling and doing her best to confront the distortions in her own heart. The letter ended like this: "I don't expect you to forgive me now. The sins I've committed will never disappear. But if one day I can truly stand on my own 2 feet, not to hurt someone, but to be of help to someone, then, just once, I want to see your face again, even from afar. That is my one and only hope now." By the time I finished reading the letter, tears were already trailing down my cheeks before I even noticed. But they were not tears of hatred. It was as if the last thorn buried deep in my heart, left behind even after shedding the armor of revenge, was finally being pulled free. Or like the quiet release of a chain that had bound me for years. They were tears of liberation. Instead of writing a reply, I chose a single postcard. It was a beautiful art card featuring the ocean at dawn. It was the most popular piece in my gallery. On it, I wrote only one line. I sincerely wish for the dawn of your life. I don't know how Savannah will feel when she reads it. There may never come a day when we can be sisters again like we once were. But that's okay. A life where you quietly cheer for someone's future is far richer and more beautiful than a life consumed by hatred. My true victory may not lie in the revenge I completed, but in the strength I've gained to forgive. Outside the window, the rain had stopped without me noticing, and sunlight peeked through the clouds, making the sea shimmer like glass. It felt as though the world was gently telling me that true strength doesn't come from defeating someone, but from quietly hoping for someone's dawn.